there's kind of two separate things that public schools in these blue states like ours are being kind of pressured over. So it's the DEI issue, and then it's the, hey, stop letting dudes compete against girls. So I want to talk about the DEI issue today. So last week, the Department of Education had sent out this alert to public school districts, public school systems, saying you have, I think it was like 10 days initially, X amount of days to comply. You have X amount of days to sign a document declaring that you have absolved any diversity, equity, and inclusion programs from your districts. So it was sort of a timeline. And I said at the time, like, this is good. This is the first step of trying to unwind this DEI, gender insanity stuff from our public school system. So I will say the Department of Education just yesterday extended that deadline a little bit. So now schools have until April the 24th. But we already have an answer for what our state's public school system is going to do. Superintendent of Public Instruction Kruse just gave a big middle finger to the Trump administration. He put out a statement saying last week the U.S. Department of Education issued a letter requesting states to certify compliance with the department's interpretation of federal civil rights guidelines. I love how he's like, interpretation. How condescending is that? Like, they're the federal government. This is how they're interpreting federal law, and you think you can interpret it better. Got it. He says, or risk losing federal funding. This is the latest attack against the rights of states to have civil rights frameworks that exceed the federal minimum standards. He goes on to say, this is also an attempt to erase diversity, equity, inclusion practices. Yeah, it is. That for decades have helped bring greater opportunities to more students. The department has stated that they intend to apply the ruling, quote, more broadly, including through their evaluation of what they determine are DEI programs, which they deem insidious and discriminatory. He goes on to say, Washington will not suppress its core values or cede our right to determine our own education system to the federal government. We will not sign additional certifications that lack authority, lack clarity, or are an assault on the autonomy of states and local school districts by misapplying a higher education admissions case. It would be irresponsible to do so. So he says, we're not going to comply. And, it's interesting. I mean, he obviously just has a very ideologically driven interpretation of who has standing to do what. How can, if it's a federal civil rights law, right, how can you have more standing to determine what it means than the federal government? I think that's case in point. And for him to say that they lack the authority to do this, what they're saying is they'll withhold funding, which they have every authority to be able to do if you don't sign this document that they want you to sign. Now, you have every right not to sign it. The public schools in Washington state, they can and they will choose not to sign it. But then they have the right to carry out the threats that they have made about what will happen if you do not sign it. So you have every choice in the world, but don't act as if you're not making that choice wide-eyed about what it could mean for public schools in the state of Washington. I would also just say, over the weekend, Kruse posted quite an interesting little image on his Facebook page, which he's since deleted, I think we've confirmed. He's since deleted it. This is on his personal Facebook page. Tweeted or posted, then deleted. It's a sign that says, super callous, fascist, racist, sexist, Nazi, POTUS. I think that has to play on supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And he said, this wins had to be made by an elementary teacher. So here you have the guy who is in charge of our entire public school system, who wants us to believe, and who we're supposed to believe has the best interest of all of the families and students of Washington state in mind. While he's posting that the president of the United States, who many of those parents voted for, is callous, a fascist, a racist, a sexist, and a Nazi. Although it also says super. So the first one's super. So that one might be correct.
Super, all those words is what they're implying.
Super callous. Got it. Super fascist.
Right.
He's super racist. Super sexist and a super Nazi. I've never heard the phrase super Nazi. Thanks, Nicole.
Super POTUS, too.
Super POTUS. There we go. See, that one doesn't work either. How are we supposed to genuinely believe that is somebody who is approaching his job not based on partisanship, his personal ideology, and his politics? You can't, right? You absolutely can't. How are we supposed to believe that this is someone who respects all the families in Washington's public schools? Or, frankly, all the teachers? Because the teachers aren't a monolith either. You absolutely can't. How can you be that partisan and be the person in charge of our public school system? Well, it's because people elected him to be in charge of our public school system for a third term, which is sort of shameful. But I'll say, I tweeted out that image today. and I tagged the head of the U.S. Department of Education, and I tagged Donald Trump. I'm like, okay, this is what the head of our public school system thinks of you. He also said, by the way, I'm not signing your stupid DEI order. So what are you going to do next?